Hello everyone, Mark Session again, and we will check some camera animations and camera switches and rendering on a go. So here's a little project. Basically the figure is running through its obstacle course. This is very simple, that was used in the NLA editor video. So there we are. We want to set up a few cameras. The first camera that we have is, if you press numpad 0, it will launch to the default camera, because you have only one. There's no reason to worry about selection. Okay, so we will start with the first camera. What I want to do is go to the first keyframe and set a camera behind the figure, or no, in front of the figure. Okay, so the easiest way to do it, you can adjust the camera, but here's the thing that you can do. So yes, you can turn on this camera viewport, set again, and move and navigate that way. But let me show you something else. So this camera is active. As you see, this triangle is filled. So you can actually select the figure, zoom in, set your scene, and if you press Ctrl Alt and numpad 0, it will reorient the camera to the desired position. Okay, so that's one simple, fast way, but you have to have a camera selected, active, and then Ctrl Alt and numpad 0. Okay, so this will be our first camera. If it's not named, let me rename it to Cam 01. And then we want to switch to another camera that shows our figure. Okay, so briefly it will start with this one, and we need a second one that's also static, and we want to mark them. So there we go. Shift A and R to create a new camera. Let me press G and move it. So here it is. This is fairly small. I will just scale it up as the icon and make it active by pressing Ctrl 0. So that's when it's active. We don't care about where it looks because we already know that trick. So let me have a timeline here, and we can go actually in animation. We don't want to animate, by the way. Just want to use the time slider. Okay, so this would be the moment at 19. So I'm setting up my view, and I want to show that figure is running on this. So Ctrl Alt and 0, and that will set that camera. Okay, so there we are. That will set that camera. Okay, so let me scale it up and see for myself. There we are. Okay, so that's our second camera. And definitely we want to switch between the cameras, but right now it is just the first camera. We have a couple moments. All right, so we want to show this. Let me see it, if it's visible or not. The figure comes in and then jumps over, but we want to create a new camera for that jump. All right, so I'm just creating a new one. So Shift A and R for a camera. Here we are. R, this is what I wanted to show. So there's another camera. And let me just Alt R, reset rotation, and reorient. So now I'm using a different technique that will actually manage the camera to be placed in the right position. So make it active, and it's very low. So what we have to do, or what we can do, we can actually select the camera in here and enable it. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Okay, so check how this thing is working. We definitely want to show more of this whole action. Maybe from the side. Okay, so we want to see this figure actually jumping. We want to see more of it. Okay, so there's the action, and then runs out. Okay, perfect. Now, so we have the first three cameras. Okay, it's time to make the switches. So to make the switch, I don't need this now. I will just move this away because we have the timeline here. That's fairly good. So timeline, and the first camera starts at the first keyframe. We have the first camera, and that was the first camera. Make it active, and camera is active, and I'm pressing Ctrl B to go in here, and it will select cam 1. Okay, so this will be function key 2, cam 02, right? So that will be the second camera. I want to make it active now and look for the change. Okay, so now it's going back. We want to set this somewhere here. Okay, so I can move it later on. So let me make that active, Ctrl 0, and I'm pressing Ctrl B now. So there we are. Starting from here, I'm going to play the animation, and this may be a little bit, oh, it's a nice change, but at the moment at 27 I want to change to cam 3. Okay, so let me leave this camera. So 27 will be my goal, and rename camera, so cam 03. It's a good idea to sort out the camera names before or ongoing. It's easier to manage things. And also make it active, and at 27 I'm pressing Ctrl B, and now this one is switching up. Okay, so let me just play the whole thing. We want to see it from camera, so Control jump, and then there will be another type of camera. We can actually move the cameras, but these cameras are free cameras, so we have to hack and create a camera target. Now the simple way is to do it by creating an empty object and parenting the camera to the empty object through a child of constraint. So that's what we will use, and you can also animate it on a path. Okay, so these two techniques will be discussed. Alright, so let me show this first. We need a new camera, and that is Shift A and R, and that's new camera. I'm pressing Alt R to reset it and isolate the camera. We don't want to see anything else. And this camera should look towards this Y direction. Okay, let me show this Y. So this is our main direction. This is what we want to maintain. So I will hold down Control, rotate it to 90 degrees. Okay, and also rotating it 90 degrees here. I'm sorry, 180. That's perfect. I'm moving back this thing because this is the camera pose, but we want to have a target. So it's not a full camera rig, it's just a simple thing. So Shift A, and we are creating empty, and we are creating plane axis. Now sometimes it's not that easy to read if you have just a crosshair type of cursor, so we can switch to arrows. That helps, and maybe, well, that should be fine, but let me just reduce a little bit of the size. So here we are, and that will be our setup. So the camera is a child of this thing. So to do that, we can add an object constraint. That will be the child of. Okay, so child of, and this is the child of the leader. And let us rename these properly, because this will be cam 4. So cam 4, and this will be cam 4 target. So cam 4 target. And what we have here is basically we can rotate this thing around as we wish. Alright, so we can free move this thing around. That helps a lot. Let me reset this. We can also move it. You can also roll it. Okay, but let me show it in action. So now it's time to leave this mode, and I want to make it active. So Ctrl 0 and zoom out, and maybe active at this stage. Okay, so active when this figure reaches, let me see the camera. So the figure is leaving the scene at 53. So I'm activating my camera, the new camera, cover 0, and leave it, and move the empty object, move it up, and the camera is active. Let me see it. Okay, this should be as a great start, and I'm pressing Ctrl B to activate. Oops, sorry. Let me select the camera itself, and 0 and Ctrl B here now. So we are marking the camera and not the target object, and this is how it goes. So let me see the video playing. Okay, the very first frame, and starting out, running, and there we go. So, and we will follow the figure with the third variation of the camera. So there we are, and here at this pose we want to animate the camera itself. So let me see this. We should move a little bit higher. So I'm moving now the targets, and I'm watching from the camera, and I can move this target spot easily. Also, if we wish, we can rotate this thing around. So if you want to make it more interesting, you can do that. You can use G and move. It's like using pad. Okay, so that's what I will do. And we want to animate this camera a little bit. So at 24 we are switching to this particle, 23 we are switching to this particle camera. So we'll turn on the key. I will hit I to, okay, so let me go in item and hit I. Rotation and movements are logged now. So this camera will show the jump, and at 65 we want to move this. So I will use the G key and move it up, and make sure that we have the camera key. Okay, so we have the keys created, so now the camera is moving with the figure, and just a slight move, and 73, that will be the change. So I'm moving again with the camera, but now I'll also rotate, and with a trackball rotation. So it's moving, camera follows, and there we go. Okay, let me play it from the beginning. Hit play. Okay, so the first camera is a little bit close, so I want to go back. Let me turn off animation and select the first camera. This one is active, and go in, and we don't need that, but we want to alter the view a little bit, slightly zoom out, pan, and show a little bit more of this. Okay, so that's a little bit better to the whole scene. Coming in, jump, and here's the animated camera movement, and then we can switch to a path follow type of camera movement. All right, now to do it, let me leave this, and we want to set up the whole thing. Let me go with a perspective view. All right, so now, okay, and we need another set. Now to do it, that will be Shift A and creating the camera, and Alt R to reset the camera, and of course we want to set the orientation to that matter, but again, so holding down Control, it's basically the same thing as before. One more degree, move it away, rotate it. Okay, so we want to have that, And what else do we want? We want a camera target, and we want to create a path constraint. So once we have the camera, we have to have the path and the empty object to act as a target. So let me just isolate the camera and Shift A. We are creating the empty, and the thing is the same basically. So just creating arrows, set it to path 80, and now this one is a child of this particular thing, and we want to create a path curve. So Shift A and curve and path, and there we go. So there's the path curve. Now this path curve is centered, everything is centered in the origin, which one is a good idea if you are working with Blender. And we will set up the orientation and everything, the alignment, when this is going on. And once it is set up, then we will move it away. Now, furthermore, we are rotating this thing. So now I'm using the control and rotate it around. And this is the starting point. So when you create it, this is the left, this is right, this is the starting point of the path curve. And we want to reorient this thing. And Control A and apply rotation. So now the rotation is gone, and we are in edit mode now. And let me select these guys and press G, and on the y-axis I'm transferring these, okay, because again the path is on my y-axis. This is how the squirrel goes forward, so this is why I'm setting this up. And this point should be in the dead center. So to make it dead center, just select the point, Shift S and selection to cursor, and now this is dead center. Okay, of course we can adjust a few things. Now I will just visually help this and G and X axis just to pull it slightly. So G and X just giving a slight pull. Okay, nothing really crazy, just to help to visualize things a little bit easier, so it's not a straight line. And be careful when you move them. There we are. Okay, so here is the camera. The camera is a child of this point. This point and point is selected, and I'm shift clicking on the path and using Control P, and we want to create a follow path constraint. So now we have a follow path constraint as well. So let me just move this. So this whole thing is following the path, but also following the directions. Which one is, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, you will see for yourself, but this is the concept of animating the camera. Now what we can do, we can select the path itself, and we can rotate this path, rotate this, and we can also animate this. So that is basically the trick, that you can animate the camera through the point, and you can drag the point through the path constraint. Okay, so here we are. Now everything is selected in this little setup, and I'm pulling this up. Let me just move with global and moving this up. No, in this case I will just move the point, move the path. Yeah, move the path, just the path. That will be fair enough, so we don't have to move anything altogether, just the path. And I will set the path and move it in my right orientation. So I'm going to start this whole thing from here, and let me select the other cameras and hide them away. Okay, so there's so many things. I'm just pressing H, and you know, by pressing Alt H you can, I'm sorry, you can get back everything. Now the environment was showing up, so this is why it was showing up, but that would be fine later on. Okay, so the points are there. This is cam target point. We don't want to have that, so let me hide it away. And the camera I'm looking for, that's also hidden, but that should be our little camera. This is the 5th camera, so let me select this and control and rename it. Function key 2, cam 5, and a little bit more telling name is to path, or follow. So cam 5 follow, and this will be cam 5 path, and this is cam 5 target. 05 targets. Okay, so we have all these, and the animation starts by default from the first keyframe, but this is cam 4 at 43, and then we have cam okay, we have the cam 4, and cam 4 is valid till 73 if I remember. So let me just check the camera. So yeah, 73. Okay, that's nice. So we want to make it active here, so I'm activating this, Control 0, activating, and pressing Control B to set this up. So from 73, this will go as planned. Now we have the movement, but be careful because this movement is starting from the first point. Okay, so definitely we have a pretty long path. I want to modify the path to suit the needs a little bit better. So let me go to the top viewport and hit the key and just selecting these G and moving this back up, G and G, just 2. Yeah, so we want to try to follow again the squirrel. So we're tracking that path. Let me see it from the left viewport. Control 3 and see if this could be elevated a little bit more at this point, maybe J. Okay. So now it's a 3D S shape for the camera, and the animation starts. So let me select this guy and go to the path properties, object data properties. Path is selected, and we have this path animation. And this path animation, we want to look for these frames. So let me go to and set this up. Actually, we are done with the timeline basically. That's good because now the camera start is fine. So we want to get back a different layout. We have a dope sheet, and we can switch that dope sheet and look for the curve. So this is what we want to look for, and the evaluation time. So let me just create modifiers. We have a modifier for this that's quite sure. So let me select this now, and now it's showing up. All right, so this is the nerd path. We have evaluation time, and evaluation time itself has an F curve modifier. So in the modifier list we have a generator, and that generator starts this movement from the first keyframe. So let me just go there. Okay, so that when it starts, let me travel with the squirrel. So this should start somewhere here. Okay, so at 7. So let me just make a key here, and sure, this is set to 0, so there's nothing here. And when the squirrel ends, this whole thing ends at about 100 frames. Let me just resize this whole thing at 100 frames. Then we want to have another key when this one is set to 100. So now it travels with the whole thing. So it goes up. And yeah, okay, just let me see that. Why we don't have the key, Control H. It was just not recording that change. So here we are, 100. And hit I to make sure that we have the key there. And there we go. Okay, now this is going with show cursor. Let me turn this off because it's could be a little bit misleading. So this thing is starting with easy and easy out. So we definitely don't really want that. We can leave it in the end, but for a start, we should go with a V vector and go to straight line. So there we are. And let me see that. And if I need, I can add animation on the fly towards by animating the camera target. Okay, so we are not even in animation mode yet. Let me hit the camera button and see. Okay, so we have the jump, then we have a switch. This moment where we are, okay, so the camera is watching through this. So right away, I have to be there. Let me go walk in. So here's the switch. This point should be already somewhere else. So we want to make it up, not scaling, but trying to, okay. Which angle? Yeah, this angle works better. Okay, excuse me, I have something in here. The record interface is going in. Excuse me. Right, okay, it's much better now. So we can start from here. Even rotate this. Yep, roll. Okay, so now we have that. And we are following the squirrel. And we should go back to local mode and then turn this on to see it. So it jumps and see as he goes. Okay, it looks nice. The only thing that bothers me is actually we are so high. So by doing that, we can go in edit mode, and let me turn off animation. We don't want to edit this in any weird ways. Just by altering the path, I can alter the way, the height of the position of the point, and that can help us a lot. Okay, so let me go back and see. Alright, so switching to the camera, we see as the squirrel goes, runs, and boom, and there we are. So then we can step to the next level. Okay, looks nice. Let me go back and start from the first frame and zoom out a little bit and make the positions a little bit slightly better. And just let me play this. Okay, so that's it. You can set this camera angle depending on your project. You don't necessarily have to animate that much of a movement. Right now it's fairly strong and moves pretty much, okay? But if you have a longer path, that follow action could be more interesting. But that's it. Okay, now what else? Of course we want to render this thing. And I will show a few ideas about rendering or how to render in chunks, etc. Okay, so let me stop this and go forward. So once we have the cameras set, we can create a preview animation before going ahead, just to see if the timing and everything is okay. So for that, we are in the output properties. I've set the size to about half size, the output, it is defined, so I have a preview folder and use that. And FFmpeg video that we are looking for encoding is MPEG-4 type, H264, that's great. Encoding speed could be good, that's pretty fine. The medium quality is just fairly okay if we are just rendering simple viewport renderings. Okay, no audio. So that will be the basic location and save. And from the file menu, we can go to Viewport Render Animation, and this will create the render animation for us. And as you see, everything is visible as normal. So if you want to save it as a documentation, this will also really helpful. Okay, so there we are now, and you can actually find this in a folder. So let me close it and look for the preview folder, and here we are. So this is how it looks, and another switch, and we have this path. Okay, so that is about the preview. Now what happens if you want to render in a higher quality, and you can render it as one. So basically, if you want to go with, let me go with the first frame. So if you want to render this out, you can press Control and Function key 12, like rendering, and you can hit render and start this whole thing. So Control and Function key 12, and that will generate the render. So in this quality. Again, it's not a viewport. Function key 12 will render with the render qualities. I have the cycles render engine used, and the sample number is very low. Okay, so let me show this. So in the settings, we have cycles, and in the viewport there's a fair amount. I'm not really using viewport render, but this is the reason why it's so high. But in the render output is the max samples is set to 16, and also the overall size is not so high. If you just make a large image, a large rendering in the output section, like this HD, which one is good, but it will make your things only sharper. The quality is, regarding to the resolution, is only make it sharper. To be fair with content-wise, you have to put on the textures and anything else. So if you have a lot of textures, if you have a lot of nuanced lights and other things, details, then you benefit from increasing it. If you don't have that much, you can find a fine balance, but you don't necessarily reach to HD or that high. So that simple resolution is fair enough. So at 50 for a preview or a basic render. Now, if I'm starting with Control Function key 12, it will render out as a whole FFmpeg video. Okay, so nothing crazy. And it will take some time. So now we have 100 frames, and with these settings on this computer, it will take quite a lot of time. So instead of that, I will split this up and create sequences, and that means we don't render it full as one. We can render it in chunks. So the first chunk will be about 50. So I will start from the first and go to the 50, and the type is a PNG. We don't need alpha, so we don't need compression because this is just a PNG file, so we don't need to deal with video settings. But we definitely want to create a from 1 to 50 folder. Okay, so I'm creating a new folder in here, and this will be 1 to 50. And that will be the folder for these particular images. Okay, let me hit render, and coming back once render is done. So we have the first 50 frames. I've turned on motion blur, as you see already. And in the folder that was assigned to these files, it's 1 to 50. So we have all these PNG files as a sequence. Okay, now it's ready to render the second one. So let me just go in here and close this. And of course, we want to go back to the main output settings, and that will be 51 to 100. So that is the second chunk, and as well we want to separate and create a new folder for this. So 51 till 100. So imagine that this is rendering in another night, or this is rendering in another computer. So if you have multiple computers and you want to split the load, then you can use this technique to easily set this up. Hit accept and start again. So control function key 12, and we'll start from that frame 51 and initialize the whole thing. Okay, so this is how we go. So here's the second set of images, and you may recognize that there is no background here in the 3D viewport. We see only the grid, but in rendering there is. Now this is simply happening because we have the environment model. That's a simple plane with extruded side edges, and that is hidden in the viewport, but it's still on the rendering. So this is why we see that. And we have this second set again in a separated folder. So there we are. Okay, let me close this one and switch workspaces. So the workspace we're looking for is for video editing. So there's a little bit of a tiny plus sign here. Video editing and video editing, that will be the issue and things. So we have all the cameras and parts and everything, but let me just set it to first keyframe 1 till 100. And this is the sequencer. So I'm using Shift A to create an image sequence, and that image sequence is feeding from this area. Hitting A, everything is there. Start frame, end frame, that is now let me go with this. So here we are, and starts and finishes. We need another Shift A image sequence, and that will be the second. So A, select all, add image strip. So now we have this second strip. So going, and there's an instant switch with the camera, and then okay, that was my mistake in here. So I'm not paying attention. So in this case, I may have to replace that footage. So there we are. And as you see, because we have the camera follows the figure, this the blur applies a little bit more in the environment, some areas, which one is a nice effect. Okay, so just let me play this, and there we go, a jump, another jump, and then the squirrel stops. Okay, so to render this one, if you need, you can add like sound, another clips, whatever, multiple things. But right now, what and how to export this? We're going back to layout and change this folder and set this to create a new one, like a final edit. So there will be, and this will be an FFmpeg and MPEG 4. Output quality can be perceptual lossless, which one is fairly good. We are not changing anything in the size here. That's not a good idea. So it's 50%, because as the input tells, we have that input and no audio because there's no audio, and everything else is set and fine. And we can now start this in the video editor. So here we have the video editor, and we can view and sequence render animation. So sequence render animation, and it will just go through, load all the sequence elements, all the jumps, and there we are. Okay, so that's it now, and we should take a look at our folder. So let me just go app and camera, and we have the final edit, and in the final edit there is the video from 0 to 100, and let me play this. And that's it, basically. Okay, so this is how it goes. Hope you had a good time. See you next time. Thank you very much.